What's going on, good people? Runaway Slave with another one. So check this out, right? I finally went to go see that movie, Birth of a Nation, the Nat Turner movie. I felt as though it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a waste of time. Me personally, I kind of wanted to see a little bit more brutality in the movie because I knew a lot about the Nat Turner story already. When I was young, I went to an African Center school. So, you know, we learned about Nat Turner stuff and other black freedom fighters. My parents taught me about Nat Turner and people like this when I was young. So I kind of pretty much had an understanding of who he was when I was maybe about 8 or 9 years old. So the movie was good, and I just wanted to see a little bit more brutality. I wanted to see a little bit more, but I'm sure they probably didn't want to show too much more because I'm sure they want to use the movie in schools and stuff like that for the future, and they probably wouldn't be able to meet the curriculum. They probably wouldn't meet the curriculum if it's too much blood and brutality. So I'm thinking that's why. But overall, good movie. So the interesting thing about the movie for me was it's amazing how the things that were happening in that movie back then to those slaves on the plantation are still happening now. But except the only thing now is kind of we have been programmed so well that we have more of a choice for certain things, and we still do them because we did them because we were forced to do them back then. Of course, a lot of things are still the same. Some of the interesting things that were the same to me that I seen that were just crazy was the part where the white lady, the white plantation mom, took Nat Turner in to teach him how to read. She wanted to teach him how to read and indoctrinate him to be a good slave, a better slave, and also a slave who can, you know, preach to the other slaves and preach the Bible to them and make them better slaves. It's amazing that to this day, still, that is what goes on in the public school systems and even in other school systems where black people willingly pay white people and people who don't have their child's best interest at heart to teach them how to hate themselves and to indoctrinate them. That was amazing because to this day, we still are going through that. We go to public schools. We send our children to people who don't like us, who won't teach us anything about our culture, who won't help us with pride, who will kick our self-esteems down lower than they already are. And we even willingly pay sometimes for this. So that part of the movie was interesting. Also, the partying they were doing. The day they were out jumping around, dancing, happy, partying, which is nothing wrong. I mean, these are slaves. They had to do something, you know what I mean, to take the ease off of them, which is what we still do now. We go to work all week long, get pimped around by white men and women at work, driving traffic, tired, beat down on the weekend, get drunk, sit around, dance, jump around, sing, and have a ball, get ready to do it all over again. Same thing. Another interesting part. The church, they had to do this back then. This was beat into them. If they didn't do it, they would probably have been killed. To this day, still, this is a tradition for black people. I don't think it has anything to do with anything to do with Christianity. I just think it's more of a slave tradition. You know, going to church, saying who the pastor is. Worshiping the pastor. You need to go to church. Another part of the movie that's just like today is something that was beaten to us so bad that psychologically damaged us, and to this day we still do it willingly. Another part, you notice Nat Turner was a prized token. He was a prized preacher. He was somebody that his master took around and made money off. His master was in debt. He was doing bad. His plantation was doing too well. So they found out that Nat Turner can read. He was a good preacher, and they used him to go around to the other plantations and make better slaves. So what they did was use Nat Turner to go around and preach to other slaves to keep them in line and make them better slaves. And if you notice, once the plantation came back together, once the slave master was doing better, he started treating Nat Turner bad again. When he was going around traveling and using him to make money, you notice he treated him bad because he was a slave. He treated him bad, but he didn't treat him as bad. And if you notice, after they had that dinner, when the slave master told him, hey, listen, we need this to work. If this works, the Turner plantation or the Turner legacy will be back the way it was before. After that dinner, notice they beat the hell out. Actually, the slave master let another man beat the hell out of Nat Turner. Before that, when a man was in Nat Turner's face hitting him with that stick, the slave master jumped in to intervene. Remember, but after he made his money off of him, He willingly let that man beat the hell out of Nat Turner while he was standing right there. That's because he was done with them. No different than the NFL, NBA players. When a running back loses a step, he can't hit the hole no more. Wide receiver can't run the 4-4 no more. What does he do? The team owner, the Jerry Joneses of the world, and these other people, they start treating these players bad. Get them out of here. We don't need them no more. At one time, they were prized possession, prized tools, but done with them. We don't need them anymore. That part also was crazy. Another part that was interesting is just like today, the house nigga. You remember the house nigga that they had, the real light guy, the house nigga who was in the house working? Remember the part when he said to them, when they were having meetings, they were talking about, doing something or having a revolt. He said, "We already dead. What you gonna do now? We already dead." And he was pretty much speaking against everything that these people were trying to do, these slaves were trying to do. He had the whole Malcolm X we sick mentality. That was so crazy because that house nigga reminds me of the same house niggas that we all deal with at work, or if we go to work, if you have a job that you deal with at work, you may even be a house nigga yourself. And it's crazy how those same house niggas are the same ones we deal with at work. It reminds me of a situation that I was in one time when I had at my previous job, when I had an issue that I was dealing with some white supremacists who were trying to railroad me. So the house nigga, who was he would be considered a chief or a deputy chief at the time, called me in, spoke about the situation. And I said I was going to exercise my rights to do something about these white supremacists who were trying to railroad me. And he said the same thing. You can do it, but I don't think it's going to do nothing. It's not going to do anything. You can do it, but I don't think it's going to do anything. And this is exactly what they do to black people at work. This is exactly what the house niggas usually do when black people try to exercise their rights and stick up for themselves. They often discourage us and tell us that things are going to be so bad. Most important part of that movie, the craziest part about that movie is, although the slave master's mom, the lady that taught Nat Turner how to read, and other white people back then, they knew what was going on was wrong. They knew that these slaves were being brutalized, knew these slaves were being chopped up, hung, had their wombs cut out, had their nuts chopped off, were getting force fed. You notice those white people back then never spoke out against the other white people. Now, there were white people who did do the Christian thing. They were Christians. Some of them did do the right thing, what they were supposed to do, the Christian thing. Most of them didn't. White people very rarely speak out against other white people when they're exercising their white supremacy, or when they're brutalizing other people of other races, especially here in America. If you notice, that's just like it is today. When these issues are going down with this white supremacy and brutalization and murder by white supremacists of black people, you notice other white people very seldom speak out against them. Flint, Michigan, very seldom. There are some, but most white people, the majority percentage of white people, will never speak out against brutality that white people do to black people in America. Notice that. They never go against their people, even when they're doing bad. But here's the kicker. Even when black people speak in favor of their people's rights, you always will have a buck dancing, bootlicking, monkey coon who speaks out against his own people, like Colin Kaepernick, like people who speak up like Colin Kaepernick, people like Dr. Boyce Watkins, people like Yvette Carnell, people like Dr. Claude Anderson, people like Dr. Umar. You'll always have other bootlicking coons who will speak out against what they say with no factual basis. We don't even need white people to do it. Black people do it. And this is a sad trait that niggas have, that these niggaroos and these jigaboos have, which we have to stop. But again, back to the movie. Overall, it was a good movie. It was worth the money. I wanted to see a little bit more brutality, but the movie was good. Check it out if you didn't see it already. I'm kind of late with it, you know what I mean? So holla at that movie if you ain't see it yet. It was okay. Runaway Slave, take the shackles off your mind, read something, do something, stop lying, grow up, tell the truth, get your opinions out and your feelings, tell the truth, all right? Take the shackles off your mind, easy.